Hey guys, welcome to my video. Today I'm going to be looking at common mistakes in the kettlebell swing. So these are just a few mistakes I tend to see when people aren't doing their kettlebell swing correctly. If you're doing one of these things, I'm going to be offering solutions throughout, so hopefully by the end of this video you're not doing any of these mistakes and you've got a good idea of how to improve your kettlebell swing. So number one, what I see is people not using their hips. The kettlebell swing is a hip-based movement, I would argue. It's not got much to do with the arms. The arms are more almost like ropes that are attaching you to the kettlebell. The hips are the part of the body that is actually moving the kettlebell. So this is what it'll look like if someone's not using their hips. So I'm really emphasizing using my arms here, whereas what I want to see and what I describe it as, I want to see your hips snap and I want to see your knees snap. So it's that kind of snap forward that pushes the kettlebell up, and maybe about the last kind of 10 or 20% of the movement is going to be to kind of finish with the arms. And you only need to get to shoulder height. I don't tend to teach an American kettlebell swing. I'm not a big fan of that. It requires a lot of shoulder mobility, which most people don't have. So I tend not to bother teaching it. So shoulder height is fine. The emphasis is on the hips by doing that as well. So now you can see a snap at the hips, like so. And it's an odd equation, but the more effort you put into the kettlebell swing, the easier that kettlebell swing becomes. And I would kind of refer to that type of swing as a very powerful, explosive swing, and that's what I tend to look for when people are doing their kettlebell swings. When we're looking at like long cycle swings, where it might be a bit more endurance based, you may be a bit kind of lazier with the swing like I demonstrated initially, but that's a whole different story. I think when you're learning how to kettlebell swing, it's learning to use your hips in an explosive manner. Number two, not packing your shoulders or not keeping your shoulders retracted. So this is where people tend to let their shoulders kind of go loose and sit forward. So when I say, arms forward, it doesn't necessarily mean at the shoulder. So the shoulders can stay back and the arms can still be locked out straight. And that's what I want to see when you're doing your kettlebell swings. So this is what it looks like when your shoulders aren't packed. And this is what it looks like when your shoulders are packed and they're kept retracted. So as you can see, when your shoulders are packed, everything's a lot tighter. And everything to do with exercise is keeping tension in the right places, and we want tension in the upper back. We want to pass the tension down so that the hips can do what they need to do. That's where we're going to be dynamic. Everywhere else we want to be static, otherwise we're just losing energy. We want all that energy to come from the hips snapping forward. And with our shoulders loose, that just tends not to be the case. We've got a bit of energy leakage at the top of the upper back. Number three, there might not be much you can do about this, especially in the situation we're in at the moment, but I often see people use way too light of a kettlebell for their kettlebell swings. So if it's too light and it's just it's almost going way too high by accident, get yourself a heavier kettlebell. If you can't do that, then you're just gonna maybe do a few warm-ups with some kettlebell swings and go on to some more advanced exercises. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But if the kettlebell's too light and you're just simply swinging it up, you kind of see it just kind of floating like I'm doing there, it's just too light. That's the case. The other thing that you might see if someone's got a bit too light of a kettlebell is they almost have to force it to come back down. Going to kind of shoulder height like I would want to see, I'm actually going to have to push it down because I'm snapping my hips too hard. So I actually have to put effort into pushing it back down because I can push it up too hard because the kettlebell's too light. Number four, hyperextending at the top of the movement. So hyperextension, at a joint is where you extend backwards. If we're looking at anatomical zero, extending backwards like so. So in terms of a kettlebell swing, the way I like to describe it is you don't want your rib cage coming away from your pelvis. We're trying to keep our rib cage down, and the distance between the ribs and the pelvis stays the same. This refers me back to the point I was making earlier where everything needs to be static, apart from the hips, apart from the knees. They're the only things that are really moving, the only joints that are moving. So this is what it looks like when someone is hyperextending. So you can see ribcage coming away. Now, if I can keep solid at my spine, but I'm using a particularly heavy kettlebell, you're gonna see me lean back a little bit, and that's simply because the kettlebell is very heavy and your body counterbalances. But that doesn't mean you can't keep your ribcage down. So I'll try and demonstrate as if I've got a heavy kettlebell, but still lean back, but still keep ribcage down and not hyperextend at the spine. I think that demonstration was correct. It's a bit hard to emulate a heavy kettlebell without one. But there I should have kept my rib cage down. I'm still able to lean back, but I'm not hyperextending at the spine. Keeps your energy from not leaking out of the front, and it probably puts you in a better position to reduce risk of injury. Number 5, this is a really common one, people turning it into a squat. Now, it's not the worst thing in the world, but if someone's trying to do a kettlebell swing, it is not a squat. If someone wants to do a squat to kind of like a front raise, it's just a different exercise. It's an inefficient swing, if you will. But we're looking at kettlebell swings here, it's not a squat. So I'll show you what it looks like when someone is squatting too much and what it should look like. So as you can see, I'm really bending at the knees, my torso is staying upright. I'm almost hitting the floor with the kettlebell. And then when I turn it into the kettlebell swing, the hips go to the back of the room, slight bend in the knees, and chest to the floor. So that's the difference there between a squat pattern and a hinge pattern. Kettlebell swing is a hinge. And last, but certainly not least, I've angled the camera down slightly, so hopefully you can see, toes lifting or feet moving. So anytime a portion of your foot lifts or moves around, you're now off balance. If you're off balance, it means you're prone to falling over, or you've moved your weight to a position that isn't mid-foot. Whenever we're doing a leg exercise, 9 times out of 10, there's probably a few examples out there, but 9 times out of 10, we want the weight to be distributed through the midfoot. The same is in the kettlebell swing. So we're still going to have the weight distributed through the midfoot, which means we're going to have to keep our toes down. What I often see is the toes lifting. It's quite rare I see the heels lifting. So I'll demonstrate, but I'm sure you get the picture. We need to keep our toes down. The way I like to describe it, it's almost like you're trying to bury your toes into the sand, or it's like you're wearing some flip-flops and you're trying to grip the flip-flops. I'll demonstrate. So yeah, as people come up, lifting their toes, we want to keep those toes down, bury them into the floor. So there you have it, the common mistakes I see in a kettlebell swing. Hopefully this video has been of help. Thanks for watching.